Now, my sort of teeny tiny claim to fame here on YouTube is that I am the guy who made the video shitting all over Sweden. And I don't necessarily want that to be my legacy, you know, because I know that objectively Sweden is a wonderful place. So here is my desperate attempt to sort of rectify this situation by comparing Sweden to an actual shithole country. Hey, busigt. Okay, now just to be clear, I have never even been to the States. I am coming at this from, you know, nothing but pure ignorance, which is what you're supposed to do on the internet, I think. But in preparation for this video, I have actually consulted with real-life Americans. So, if any one of you watching this get your, you know, fragile, gun-slinging little egos offended, I will bravely hide behind the Americans that I've actually talked to. Okay, so here we go. 10 things about Sweden that would definitely send Americans. Now, I don't honestly know exactly what that means, but I'm told that I probably sound really hip and cool. Okay, number 1 is free healthcare for everyone. Yay, amazing. Now, I imagine most Americans already know that, apart from America, most other like rich countries in the world guarantee free healthcare for its citizens. Sounds quite obvious, but there it is. And this is not some socialist ploy either. It's not like our governments force us to insert chips into our brains or something. Those ones go in just under the skin, I think right here. But it is true that literally no one goes bankrupt for any sort of medical reason here in Sweden. Doctors in Sweden never have to turn away a patient for not being insured or not having enough money for treatment, because that would be crazy and very dystopian. But hold on, you do have to pay for both checkups and medicine, so it's not actually free at all, is it? Yeah, shush. Okay. Now, it is true that you do have to pay for those things. I think a doctor's visit is about 25 bucks. But to be fair as well, that is capped at 125 bucks per year. So if you have to go many times, it is free to go eventually. And drug prices are obviously very regulated as well, so you never have to pay more than about probably like 40 or 50 bucks for your medicine. Stuff like insulin is obviously always, all the time, completely free. So number 2 is that you don't need a car in Sweden. Ja jävlar vad oväntat. Herregud. As I understand it, Americans use cars to get pretty much everywhere. I don't know if that's true, but I imagine like if you're just going like 50 meters down the street or something, that's what, like 14 ounces? Or something. Even if you just need some toilet paper, you'd still need to get into your car and drive to the closest store. That sounds a bit complicated, you know. Here we simply lean down in the utedass and pick up some used paper and just fold it enough times, you know. I, for instance, don't have a driver's license, and growing up, no one in my family had one either. You can get around all of Sweden very easily by just using trains and buses. Okay, fine, it is a bit of a hassle not having a car up in the north of Sweden. But down here in Stockholm, and I'd say in most like major cities, local traffic systems are very comfortable and you don't need a car. Number 3, now speaking of toilets, this is what a Swedish toilet looks like. Now, I have been told that the amount of water here is send-worthy for some reason. I don't really know why. Is it too little or too much water? Like, do you guys just shit straight onto the ceramic, or is there enough water to not see the bottom? And by the way, the water is blue here in Sweden so that you feel patriotic every time you pee, in case you were wondering. Speaking of toilets, at least in most places, you have to pay in order to use public restrooms here in Sweden. I didn't want this list to be only like positive things about Sweden, so I was trying to figure out bad things about Sweden as well, and this is one of the ones that I could come up with. I've been told that this is not the case in the States, that you just wander into any public restroom and use it without paying, my goodness. And people say Sweden is the socialist country. You know, capitalism has gone so far here that you have to actually have money in order to take a state-sanctioned shit. Number 5, speaking of toilets, it is not as common in Sweden to get married as it is in the States, it seems. Now, I was a bit surprised by this. I didn't know that marriage was such an important institution in the US, because here no one really cares that much. Like, some people get married, most people I'd say don't. My parents were never married. Instead of marrying, we simply spawn more Swedes during our midsummer rituals, as you know about anyway. So marriage is not as important of a concept, you know. Instead, we are sambos. Just precis. Sorry, my fridge is going off. Really, my fridge really cares about marriage. Instead, we are sambos, which is the word for a couple living together. It is a bit less romantic, more pragmatic, and therefore incredibly Swedish. Number 6, I mentioned guns earlier. At least I think I did. As I've said, I've never been to the States, but my image of Americans is that everyone has a gun. Most people have more than one, and then maybe about 1 out of 10 people is one of them enthusiasts, which I suppose means that you sleep with a rocket launcher up your ass or something, I don't know. But yeah, the vast majority of Swedes don't own a gun. You might have heard in the news that gun violence is on the rise here in Sweden, which is true, but talking about the gun problem in the US and comparing it to the one in Sweden is a little bit like comparing like a tiger to this IKEA rooster that I have. The threat level is not quite on the same scale, you know. So Sweden doesn't really have a gun problem in the same sense. We do have a bit of a bun problem though. Okay, number 7. So the one thing on this list that I think made me, I don't know if I should laugh or vomit, was that in America I heard that if you don't have money as a kid, you don't get school lunch unless your parents pay for it. What the f is that? Poor little whatever, whose parents don't have quite enough money to pay for his school lunch, goes to school and gets denied food while, this is crazy, while his rich parent friends get food. Like, is that how it works? That's f***ing insane. In Sweden, obviously, you get free school lunch, all the way from elementary school up until including high school. Okay, number 8. University fees, yay! So university tuition in Sweden is free. Ta-da! Now to be fair, once you start university in Sweden, this is another very big problem in Sweden, you no longer get free school lunches. You do have to pay for your own food once you're an adult. Number 9. Everything is very clean. Seems to be one of the first impressions that Americans who visit Sweden have. And I don't really know. Again, I haven't been to the States, but I agree, I suppose. I've lived in London and the amount of sort of used diapers on the side of the road is way down in Sweden compared to London. And I imagine maybe the States is the same, I don't know. I mean, I've heard of the smelly New York City, for instance. Sweden doesn't really smell bad, I don't think, for the most part. You know, it smells of flowers in spring and antidepressants in winter. I don't know. Oh, and this is what a Swedish 7-Eleven looks like. I was told to show this because apparently this is very fancy and clean compared to American ones. Is this true? Like, is this something exceptional in any way? To me, it's just a regular bloody 7-Eleven. And finally, number 10, to the chagrin of one of the major political parties here in Sweden, not every Swedish person is blonde and has blue eyes. That is a myth, I suppose. And some of the most, like, who I consider the most stereotypically Swedish people, as in the ones who really enjoy surströmming and like dancing around a penis pole pretending to be frogs to a French marching song, all those very stereotypical Swedish things, they look all sorts of ways. So in conclusion, I don't want my 10 reasons why I hate living in Sweden video to discourage anyone who wants to visit Sweden or to move here or anything, because again, Sweden is lovely. In many ways. I find it a bit boring, but that's it. I would love to visit the States as well, of course, you know. I'm just gonna have to get me a bulletproof vest first. And if this video offended you as an American, that's okay. We all know that the US is by far the coolest country in the world in so many ways. So don't be mad at me, please, because I am scared of most of you. And we're all rooting for you in November. Don't f*** it up again. Jesus Christ. Okay.